Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. There is a huge amount to get through this week. We crown a new king, well, an old king, but in Formula One, there's W Series. There's a bit of an FIA meltdown, to say the very least. BTCC crown a new champion, World Superbike, NASCAR. But we've got to start with the death of the passing of two very, the very sad passing of Phil Reed and Chrissy Rouse.
Two extremes of the motorbiking community, sadly, Phil Reed passed away, age 83,
Yep.
So had a great life, he won 7 world championships. He was the first rider to win all 3 titles in 1 year. Because in those days, in the 60s, when he was riding, they did 125cc, 250 and 500, all in the same weekend. It's like a rider now doing Moto 3, Moto 2 and Moto GP, all in the same weekend. Sad with Phil Reed, he was a bit of a controversial character towards the ends of his career because he was one of the first to lead a ban on the TT being a world championship round, which upset a lot of British fans who sort of never really forgave him for being anti-TT. And he was rather overshadowed by Mike Hailwood because they were both racing in the same era. Mike the Bike was, every fan's superhero. But Phil Reed, 7 world championships, an amazing motorcycling career, which, fortunately survived. Where sadly, last week we found out the death of Chrissy Rouse, who succumbed to injuries at Donington when, as the classic, he fell and another bike hit him. You can't get away from that danger in bikes. Every see someone falling off in a pack of bikes, you're terrified they're going to hit. And sadly, that happened to Chrissy. I never really met him. He was very popular. He did a podcast with someone else. He was apparently a real joker in the pack. I think he won a Superstocks title about 2 or 3 years ago, and he'd only just started doing British Superbikes. So a real character, very sadly lost in the motorbiking community.
Yeah, it is sad. It's super sad. In cars, you've got that little bit of extra protection, but the bikes are so. We say it every week. These guys, they certainly. They've made a very, very strong start.
Our thoughts with all the family and friends of Chrissy and Phil Reed as well.
Yeah.
Before Formula One, we probably ought to mention the only other news this week. The W Series has, as we were talking last week, run out of funding. They won't be going to the USA or Mexico. They've crowned Jamie Chadwick the champion for the 3rd year running. They say they're going to pay her another $500,000, even though they got bust. Big talk, don't worry, we'll be back next year. Already mentioning maybe more in Europe, and if they lose the Formula One platform, they'll become an unknown regional championship. So it was a brave thing. I think it's pretty much over, but a very brave concept, which hopefully has ignited lots of young 8-year-old, 9, 12-year-old girls to maybe have a crack at karting and follow that way. But I'm not sure what it's really achieved or what it will have achieved long term when we look back at it. But yes, Jamie Chadwick is the champion again.
So Jamie, congratulations to her. Phenomenal. For 3 times. If they do get it going in next season, and I hope they do for their sake, but if they do get it going, maybe drop Jamie Chadwick. Jamie,
I hope she is going to Indy Lights. She's had this test Indy Lights. She's got $1.5 million. Apparently spent half her money already on buying a flat in London. So she's not going to invest her own money in her motorsport career by the sounds of it.
Why would you, if you got the opportunity to do it?
Well, I know.
Good for her.
Why would she want to be running 23rd in the Formula 3 when she can be winning every weekend and having the great glamour around the world in W Series? So she's a clever girl. And,
do you know what I'm fed up of seeing? And I'm going to be the old grumpy man shouting at the crowds. I'm fed up of seeing people saying, why aren't there any girls in? Why aren't there any ladies in Formula One? This is an outrage. This is completely outrageous to W Series. And it's not about exclusion of any sex or gender. It's ability. As simple as that. And well, maybe not with Latifi, but it typically is.
As I said last week, Kay Peter was winning races at Brooklands before the war. There was encouragement for women pre-war at Brooklands. Desiree Wilson, I raced against in Formula One. She had as much opportunity as I did. That was the British Formula One series. But she's really good. She's probably the best female driver I think I've ever seen. Sylvester Simone, keeps on getting IndyCar rides because she's a woman and they want a woman at Indy. The Argentinian, Brazilian, Chilean girl who's been doing Indy Lights and Formula 2, why I always start a story and forget the name. I always do this. Apologies again. You all know who I mean, but she hasn't got anywhere yet. So when a young, talented female driver starts winning a kart championship, maybe a national single-seater championship, as Desiree Wilson did in South Africa, there will be girls coming through, but we have to find the very, very talented ones first.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on to some loads to talk about. Where do we start with Formula One? Because it was just the most bizarre weekend ever, I think, in Suzuka, of course, which all the drivers love. It's a funny track because it's a very fast track, but it's not anywhere really to overtake, especially when it's wet.
And there's no DRS.
Track position was really
talk about the race first and then talk about everything that went wrong, mate.
Okay.
So it was a very entertaining race. I mean, we're lucky we got a race. Verstappen's move on the first lap of the first start was pretty amazing to hold on around the outside of Leclerc, and then, of course, chaos went off and it all stopped. It was red flagged. But the race itself was actually fairly entertaining because we had this sort of battles, didn't we? We had, obviously, Verstappen disappeared out front.
But you say that, and he did finish a masterclass 7 seconds in front. But Leclerc was right behind him for the first sort of 6 or 7 laps. So, and there weren't that many laps. Ferrari
wears its tyres out. That's what Leclerc was saying at the end of the race with the Perez battle. It seems that, and also the previous Grand Prix in Singapore, where he was with Perez, wasn't he? Then all of a sudden he just dropped away. The Red Bull can make its tyres last longer. But there were some great battles. I mean, as I said, Perez, Leclerc, then Ocon and Hamilton. Ocon drove a great race, holding off Lewis, who never really seemed to make a move, but was always there. They had this wonderful battle between Vettel and Alonso. Because at one stage we had the 3 world champions, weren't they? Well, they finished in that order, didn't they? Finished Hamilton, Vettel, Alonso, 3 former world champions battling away. And Alonso did this last-minute tyre change. He put on some fresh intermediate tyres and clambered back up 3 or 4 places.
3 seconds a lap faster than Russell and Vettel and most of the field. And I wonder whether Lewis should have done that, actually. I know it's a lot of track position and overtaking was different, but I wonder if Lewis should have maybe taken a bit of a chance because he couldn't get in front of Ocon.
George doing some good overtakes up at the Dunlop course. So George was, and he's now 4th in the championship now. So there was an excellent 8th place for Latifi, because of course Latifi and Vettel were the first to stop for the intermediates, about 1 lap into the second restart. They were all the intermediates, which is why they were elevated. But Latifi, you can't rubbish Latifi, Nicholas. I know he's not maybe good enough to be a brilliant Grand Prix driver, but as with Ralf Schumacher, they have these moments. They're very, 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 very good drivers. And to keep his car on the road in those conditions, Latifi needs, the greatest slap on the back, 8th place. But of course, the Vettel-Alonso battle leads us to the first FIA cock-up, or whatever we want to call it, before we even get to the points, because quite a few teams thought there was 1 more lap to go, because apparently Verstappen got to the finish line 6 seconds before the 2 hours were up. So there should have been another lap and another lap, not just another lap. So quite a few teams were telling their drivers, keep going, we're not sure the race is over. Alonso's team, Alpine, were raging because they were convinced they had 1 more lap to get by Vettel, and maybe even catch up with George, or whatever was ahead next. Not George, was behind them. Anyway, so that was the first catastrophe of the FIA, who didn't seem to know when the race was going to stop. Then the points. We all thought, no, he hasn't won the championship. And then someone dug up a rule they made back in, I don't know why none of the Formula One teams, they're usually pretty good at checking rule books. Yet apparently the rule was slightly changed for points back in May of this year, or even earlier. After that, they were sort of related it back to what happened at Spa, where they sort of gave half points for 3 laps. So they thought they better give more for 3 quarters. I don't know. But anyway, there seemed to be a huge misunderstanding as to who had how many points. Also, how many laps will have to go. And then we go back to the truck, coming on the track.
Well, let's just stay on the points for a moment, because the whole way through, you got these commentators, Crofty, who, by the way, he made a couple of howlers. You said about Ocon and Hamilton. He kept saying, every time on the straight, he kept saying, this is Lewis Hamilton's chance. He's really close now. He's really close. And every time, it hasn't got the straight line speed. Every time, it was just, and Jenson Button was really a masterclass. He kept saying, yeah, but he can't overtake because the Red Bull pulls away because there's no DRS and the Red Bull's fast and straight line. But he was, this is his chance. This is his chance. no, it's not his chance because he can't overtake. He hasn't got straight line speed. And then all through the race, bless him, because he knows his stuff, he knows his stats, and he's got a producer in his ear as well. The whole way through, he's saying about the points. It's going to be they're going to be reduced points the whole way through. Reduced points, reduced points, reduced points. Surely somebody within Sky Sports should have just said something in his ear and say, actually, no, rule number, blah, 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 blah. Because it was just so confusing. And it just, even Max Verstappen, when he was told that he'd won the championship, the whole thing was so confusing. So the point.
Going back to Leclerc as well, that was another thing, because that was the points that gave him, because
of course it was,
he got demoted to third. Quarter. And luckily, I've been banging on about this on this podcast about if you go through the chicane, keeping your place, you've gained an advantage because you haven't crashed. I've said this scenario in Canada used to be the thing, outbrake yourself so you don't get overtaken, take the escape road, come back on, and I haven't gained an advantage. And thankfully, the stewards finally said, well, of course you have. You would have crashed.
Yeah.
But it goes back to Leclerc, again, another sort of weakness that he has of making these errors, because he defended brilliantly against Perez. He seemed to have it all under control. His tyres were going off, but all the previous laps, first up at the tight hairpin, he stayed the wide line, the quicker line, and Perez kept on coming at half length up the inside. It's a bit like a NASCAR move on the banking, but always Leclerc got the better traction on the way out to him taking the wider line. But on that last lap, it's like a sort of young novice. He was like panicking, I think. He's waiting. He's thinking, okay, Perez is going to try some dive bomb on me now. So on that last time, he actually took the tight line into the hairpin the first time he'd done it, which sort of didn't work out that well. And then coming up to that final chicane, he had a reasonable, Perez wasn't actually even nosing up to his gearbox. And yet he's going to dive at me. He must have been checking his mirrors. And if he just break the previous 10 laps, he would have made it through the chicane and held second place. So he does have this chink in making errors when under pressure, under stress, which I think he's going to have to clean up if he's going to be a world champion in the future.
But you say that about him, which I agree. But it's also the same with Vettel. I know Vettel's matured massively this year, and he's become a phenomenal world champion, helped by a lot of the teams not even pushing him. But he never really liked pressure, so it'd be quite interesting if he gets some pressure next season or at the end of this season. How he
held off Alonso well, though.
Yeah,
he had a really good Japanese Grand Prix, Vettel.
Amazing!
Last at the first corner of the first bit of the race to end up there. But yes, the truck after Sainz again,
the crane on track.
Oh, I mean, it just beggars belief. I mean, surely the stewards have a control box that speaks to all the marshals' posts, and the marshals are all told, you only go when we say go. Because we've seen so many times, where a car's just parked by the gate, we're all saying, go out, drag it back, forget the safety car, just nip out there, boys, pull the car through the gap where the car's parked. But they don't, they all stay there until they're told they're allowed to go. And it was just, especially, with what happened to Bianchi, happening in Japan, it just... But then on the other hand,
visibility was awful. It wasn't just the crane on track, by the way. It was the marshals on track as well. And Gasly got a penalty for
well, I was about to come to that, because although, the Japanese organiser, the stewards, should be in big trouble for allowing that to happen, I'm going to allow that Gasly was penalised for going too fast. Because I think nowadays we put all the pressure on the organisers to keep us drivers safe. We never do anything wrong. And I go back to, I'm guilty of this in several occasions. The wave yellow flag, I've been done for speeding in the zone, means slow down and be prepared to stop. And if actually us racing drivers obeyed the wording of that rule, we wouldn't need virtual safety cars or pace cars or anything. If we actually kept our own marshals safe. And it has to be said that Jules, I know it was a terrible, terrible accident, but he was pressing on, trying to catch the car in front, through a waved yellow flag zone, when he aquaplaned off the road. So I think us drivers need to be slapped a bit, like Gasly was, when we disrespect, what we should. There's no question.
If you slow down in a Caterham race or any race, I'm not saying Caterham race, any race, if you slow down yellow flags, you get mugged behind you because everybody does it. So if you're a racing driver and you want to win, you think, oh, I've got to push it a little bit harder because otherwise they're going to come up behind me and mug me when there's a green flag. So I'm
we feel responsibility.
I do feel a responsibility. Yeah. But it was, I mean, just awful. FIA awful. And then they're coming out cap in hand saying, we're listening, we made a mistake. A bit like the British government here. We're listening to you, we got your feedback and we're going to do something about it. Oh, no, it should never have happened in the first place. That's why you're paid millions and millions to manage this wonderful sport that we love.
And then finally we come to the budget.
What is going
on? They delay it from a Wednesday to a Monday. What's that, 4 days? So they haven't got the answers.
Of course they had the answers. They wanted to get Japan out the way first.
I'm melting down because they've given it a minor overspend. And a minor is defined as 5% or below. But they haven't said how much. I mean, some people are saying, well, it could have been £100,000 or it could have been £7 million within that 5% bracket. It could be 7. They must know. Why release a minor without saying what the flipping number is? The number must be somewhere. They must know whether it was 7 million or £100,000. Why not give the public the number? So then we can all say, well, blooming, that was £7 million. That gave them a big advantage last season and this season. But £100,000, you know, okay.
Or £3.50 might have bought them a pasty or something. So what is a minor? Because there's a big difference. Because it could have been 10 quid.
Yeah, or could have been 7. And I just tell the public more, you know. I mean, one the Dutch newspaper saying there were free lunches have been charged or something. It's like they're trying to get away with it. Obviously, Red Bull are appealing it. They're saying we still don't think we did. But
let's not mention Christian Horner this podcast. Let's just move on from him this podcast. I think Twitter does its thing with understanding.
But you know, I can't believe that, you know, Mercedes and Ferrari are going to take it lying down. They're just going to shovel this down the road until Christmas, and then they'll tell us, you know, they've been fined. There was a tweeter, I forget your name, Mr. Twitter. I hadn't even thought about it. It's a weight penalty.
I saw that.
Because I think, you know, point deductions, they'll always be looked back and say, well, just deduct enough to keep from controversy and, you know, never have any real effect. Then they have the fines. Fines are completely useless, you know, in Formula One, the money they've all got. And unless, I suppose, it might take it off their next year's budget. Maybe what they'll say, that we included in your next year's budget. But yeah, weight penalty. And then it could be for every million, you know, you overspend, you get another kilo of weight or 10 kilos, which will then handicap your car for a whole season rather than a fine or points deductions. I think I'd rather like that idea. It's quite a simple way. Right, boys, you're going to have to carry 10 kilos around for next year.
But then they'll just say, oh, we're not going to race this year because we're not going to be competitive, so we're not going to race. Oh. But Tiff, this is a sport that is measured in the most finite of detail, the minuscule of detail. So Lewis Hamilton in Brazil last year, his DRS spoiler was 0.2 of a millimetre.
So many people are tweeting that, and he was.
But it's true. It's not because it's Lewis Hamilton. It's just a brilliant example of showing
we're not Lewis Hamilton fanboys.
How this is measured. Fans. Yeah, this is measured in the finite of detail. So you can't allow it because whatever it is, whether it's the sandwiches or the coffees, it doesn't matter. You've overspent. So, but how much is it? So we can make an opinion.
And sadly, poor old Max. I mean, he's driven brilliant this year. The Red Bull's fantastic. But
he's won 12 of the 18 races. He's just been phenomenal.
But once again,
wherever he starts in the race.
He wakes up on Monday morning with his world title clouded by, you know, amount of controversy, you know. I bet he's looking forward to winning the championship without a single bit of controversy going on. Poor man. I mean, he drove brilliant. He's class. He showed poor old Perez up again. I saw Checo was moaning last week as well because these South Americans and Mexicans, he's getting unfairly criticised, bringing the race into the debate. No, Checo, you're criticised because in qualifying, you're normally about half a second slower than the guy in the same car. And the only 2 races he's won is when Max has been stuck at the back of the grid or, you know, behind him at Monaco, you know. So, you know, in racing, you're 30 seconds behind Max in the same car, you know. So he's doing a great job in the best car.
He's not doing a great job. He's always half a second behind in qualifying, as you just said, and he only wins if Max has a problem. So he's not doing a great job because your number 2 driver should always be there to support you so you can work out your strategy, so you can work together. He's not. And then when they get a 1-2, and it was a fluky 1-2 because Leclerc went over the chicane, when they get a 1-2, it's all over Twitter and saying, oh yeah, teamwork, 1-2, we did this. No, you didn't. You got it on the last corner because another driver made an error. It wasn't because you were working together.
We've already upset Dutch people we don't upset Mexican people too much as well. No.
Well, I don't mind upsetting anyone because it's our opinion, or my opinion anyway.
So all that going on with Formula One, we still don't know where we are, and we won't know for a while. But anyway, Max Verstappen, double world champion. Let's see what happens next.
You can't say double world champion because now you'll get people saying he's not world champion because Abu Dhabi 2021.
Where are they going next?
They're going to Circuit of the Americas and then Mexico. Good. There's only 4 races left, but Max for sure is going to break the record of 13 wins in a year. He's on 12 already, and an absolute masterclass. Wherever he starts, whatever opposition's against him, he is, as I've said many times, he's really matured this year. Right, let's move on from Formula One.
British touring cars, they've also crowned their champion this weekend, and that sounded like, I didn't see any of the racing, I just read the stories. It sounded like a fabulous 3 races around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, you got to a proper circuit. I saw one little clip of Ash Sutton with half his car broadside going out the fastest corner, Hawthorns on the dirt, with the back of the car on the dirt. Amazing close pushing, shoving. But Tom Ingram had the pace all weekend to claim his first championship. And he was one of the guys we said on our first podcast this year. We'd like to see Tom, a new winner. He's worked so hard, Tom, to get the sponsorship together, to get into touring cars, to get that drive, to get the car sorted. And so I'm delighted that Tom won by 12 points from Ash. Ash, a great champion, gave the number 1 onto the car. And he was 1 point ahead of Jake Hill, the other youngster that we hope his money's come through. There's stories in the press about Rocket owing millions and billions to sponsorship deals they haven't paid for. So I hope that's not going to be a problem for Jake going into next year. But it's certainly a real reverse point. So that's why, Tom had that lead, but if he just got pushed off in the reverse grid turn 1, he loses the title to Ash. So it must have been an incredibly tense drive for Tom. And I like the fact that they went to the final round despite not having all the weight penalties, because it was a proper meritorious season with the only change being that sort of bit of extra boost for whatever in their electric engines. So, really good championship this year by the looks of it, and all congratulations to Tom Ingram.
Well, and we've got to congratulate, or not congratulate, we've certainly got to acknowledge your mate, Jason Plato, because...
Oh, we forgot. Has he or hasn't he? Will he or won't he? I don't know, Jason. He might be sneaking back in.
He'll come back. He'll do a race. It's such a shame. 97 wins, and didn't quite get that 100, which he was hoping to get this year. We said at the beginning of the year, no disrespect, Jason, but you're not going to get your 100th win.
But his engine, he had the wrong engine this year. You see, that's why he's got to give himself one more year, because he was stymied. He had the wrong engine. He didn't have the right donkey under that bonnet, whatever he was moaning about instead. So, amazing career. I hope he goes on and does some GT racing at Le Mans and Sebring. And he's looking to do that sort of thing. And I think he needs to get away from the hurly-burly-whirly touring car world.
I think it'd be great if he does, because he's a character as well. He's clearly an exceptional driver, and he's a good character as well. Did you see that, for those who, I didn't see it, but I just saw the clip, one of the support races in the Porsche Carrera Cup at Brands Hatch, going down Paddock, which is a huge undulating hill down. Will Martin got a little love tap behind going down Paddock, and that could have been nasty. So he veered off to the right, over the tyre walls, and the Marshals, which of course only 18 months ago lost a Marshal at Brands Hatch, had to run for cover because the car went over the top where they were. So very lucky that nothing happened there. Yeah, pretty awful stuff. But BTCC, amazing. Paul O'Neill, he's a good lad, I got to say. He's I like his commentary, and Steve Ryder as well. So
the whole team, Tim Harvey. It's really
Tim is right.
The whole thing, is just Steve Ryder fronting it. It's just got the perfect commentary and presenting lineup. And long may it stay the same.
I hope they don't do what maybe some channels have done with you, and start thinking Steve Ryder's a bit too old. I hope they don't do that and become ageist, Tiff, because you're still
Silver Fox. You need some young, shouting, punchy presenter to open the show. Welcome to BTCC, go. Oh, no. Welcome to British Touring Car Champions. That's right. World Superbikes, they're still cracking. They've still got 3 more rounds to go. The bikers run late in the season, like as Formula One does. 2 wins for Razgatlioglu down at, where were they?
Batterslew or something? Is that what it's
I
called?
forget what it was. No, the Algarve. They're in the Algarve. That wonderful. Put them out, weren't they, this weekend? Yes. Anyway, 2 wins for Asgatliog and 1 win for Bautista, who still seems to be going to hold that title. But I mean, I think Jonathan Ray got all 3 third places. Well, he had a 1 second and 1 third. But those 3 riders, Ray, Razgatlioglu, and Bout, just seem to fill the podium for every race, every weekend. It's incredible how they've got ahead of the rest of the field, and nobody else seems to be challenging them. NASCAR, drama.
So in NASCAR, am I right in saying that it's down to the last 12 now? And
8, down to last 8. We lost 8. 4 more. We lost 4 more. It's 3 races, then you lose 4 more.
Okay.
And
was it exciting? I know it was at Charlotte, but was it exciting?
Out went the reigning champion, will not be champion this year.
Wow.
As Kyle Larson.
Wow, number 5.
In the right place, he had enough points in the bag. Every overtake, every position you change, you gain 1 point. Tapped the wall with 12 laps to go with the rear of the car, broke the toe link into the pits. One of the mechanics, amazing job, got him back out again. He was then running with enough points to still transfer to the last 8. It's all so close. He still had enough in hand. But right towards the end of the race, they had a yellow flag for debris. And the only thing that would change him not staying in was if one of the drivers behind him in points won the race. Because if you win, you're straight through. So Christopher Bell, who had hardly any points, stopped for new tyres. I think it was about, I don't know how many laps to go, 12 laps to go or something. Put a new set of tyres on, came out about 10th place overall. And the next 10 laps, including yet another yellow flag, he barged his way through and won the race, which pushed him through into the playoffs and put Larson out. In fact, Larson only lost out going through by 2 points, and he was pushed out by Chase Briscoe. So 8th in the points now going through is Chase Briscoe. He's only 2 points ahead of Larson. But there's more controversy because in the last 2 or 3 laps, his teammate, I forget his teammate is now, anyway, his teammate started acting ahead of him, barging, making gaps. So Briscoe was like gaining 2 or 3 places in the last lap, and gaining 2 more places is what put him 2 points ahead of Larson. I mean, that's drama. You've got to admit, that's drama.
It is drama.
The Larson's out, along with Suarez, Cindric and Bowman. The 8 remaining drivers go forward now to Las Vegas. 3 races to see who will go to be the last 4, and then it's a winner-takes-all finale. Of course, they're all racing within the whole field still. Everybody still races. So in the last round, it'll be the first of the 4 survivors.
Sorry, where's the last round?
Homestead, I think. Miami, I think.
Okay.
Not sure. They're off to Vegas next. I'm not sure where the next one's is. But, I mean, it is. I mean, there were people getting shoved out the way, left, right and centre. Allmendinger used to race IndyCar, was leading. He was shunted out of the way. Whoever took his place got shunted out of the way. There was a lot of nudging and nerfing, which happens at NASCAR, and they seem to allow it and then let the drivers get their own back at the next race. The Larson out.
Wow.
The number 5.
Number 5, he's gone. So a very interesting week. Formula 1 dominating, FIA dominating.
FIA dominating, yeah. I mean, just give us the facts. There must be a number in the book. Red Bull appealing, there'll be courts, Ferrari will appeal to the appeal, and then Mercedes will appeal to the appeal to the appeal. And then there'll be a $2,000 fine. That'll be it.
Or a $20,000 fine, which, like you said, it doesn't matter. Who cares if they don't mind about paying fines. I don't know what's going to happen there. Lots of speculation. They're going to take points away. Lewis is going to be crowned champion. That's never, ever, ever going to happen. If they were going to do anything about Lewis, it would have been done some time ago in the right way. Next week, we've got some amazing racing next week. So we got MotoGP from Phillip Island. We got British GT.
Spectacular circuit on Tasmanian Island and Australia. Really fun. It'll probably favour the Ducatis because, of course, we've got the French guy leading the championship by just 2 points.
French guy without a French-sounding name.
And yes. Oh, come on. You're supposed to help me with these names. I suddenly had these.
I'll tell you in a second. British GT decider at Donington. Then you just mentioned NASCAR at Las Vegas. But the biggest spectacle this weekend, 2 world-class tracks, Silverstone and Spa Francorchamps. How do you say that, Tiff? Tiff?
What's at Spa then? You're at Caterham's at Silverstone.
Yeah, but only Academy and Road Sport. Then the big boys, the 270s, the 310s, and the 420s, they're off at bloody Spa.
Go to your motorbikes. We can't end this. You can't end this.
Have you got the name?
Why do I forget names? It's just ridiculous.
So if you are in the UK and you want to come and watch some proper racing, Saturday and Sunday, it's a triple header this weekend, plus a super pole. Come along to Silverstone and cheer me on. I need all the help I can get, I can tell you that. But it's not the GP circuit, sadly. It's only the international. So it's a real shame you miss out the whole Cops, Maggots, Beckett, which I love that.
Quartararo. Fabio Quartararo.
I was just about to say Quartararo. So on the bike side of things, Quartararo and our respects as well, obviously, to Phil Reed and
Chrissy Rouse. Yeah. See you next week.
Cheers.